What if I told you the pain of a barren woman led to the birth of one of Israel's greatest prophets? And what if the true villain of the story wasn't a monster, but another woman, blessed with children, but cursed by pride? This is the haunting story of Elkanah's wives and how one woman's sorrow changed the destiny of a nation. In the quiet hills of ancient Israel, a man named Elkanah lived with two wives, Hannah and Peninnah. But this wasn't some romantic love triangle. It was pain, deep spiritual pain. Because while Peninnah had many children, Hannah had none. And in their home, motherhood wasn't just a blessing. It was your identity, your worth, your voice in a world that barely listened to women. And Hannah, she was silent. Until one day, she broke. Elkanah wasn't a villain. In fact, Scripture describes him as a devout man. Every year, he'd make the pilgrimage to Shiloh to offer sacrifices to God. He loved Hannah deeply, and perhaps even more than Peninnah. But that love couldn't protect Hannah from the quiet shame of childlessness. Because in ancient Israel, a woman without a child was often seen as cursed. Peninnah, Elkanah's other wife, had children, lots of them. And she made sure Hannah never forgot it. She mocked her, teased her, rubbed her blessings in Hannah's face like salt in an open wound. And the worst part? It happened year after year. Every trip to the temple, meant for worship, became a stage for Peninnah's cruelty. Now here's the twist. While Hannah was childless, it was Peninnah who was truly cursed. Because what kind of person sees someone else's pain and adds more? Peninnah had children, but not peace. She had blessings, but no grace. And in that way, she became a mirror of pride, a warning that having everything means nothing if you lose your soul along the way. She may have had many sons, but none of them would be remembered in history. Hannah, on the other hand, was about to write a legacy with just one child. One year, Hannah had had enough. She went to the temple in Shiloh, but instead of simply offering her sacrifice, she poured out her soul. No words at first, just broken whispers, lips moving but no sound. A silent cry to the only one who could help her. It was so intense, so raw, that the high priest Eli thought she was drunk, but she wasn't. She was desperate enough to make a dangerous vow. She said, "Lord, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you." That's right. She wasn't just asking for a child. She was promising to give him up, to let him live his life in the temple, serving God far away from her arms. That's not a deal you make unless your heart is completely shattered. And in that moment, God listened. Hannah returned home. Time passed, and then a miracle. She became pregnant. Her shame was lifted. Her cry answered. Her heart healed. And she named the boy Samuel, which means God has heard. But Hannah didn't forget her promise. When Samuel was weaned, just a few years old, she did the unthinkable. She brought him to the temple, left him there, and walked away. Not because she didn't love him, but because she had made a vow, and she kept it. And Samuel, he would go on to become one of the most powerful prophets in Israel's history. The one who anointed kings, who heard God's voice in a time of silence. And what about Peninnah? The Bible never mentions her again. Not after Hannah's prayer, not after Samuel's birth. She fades from the story like a shadow outshined by the sunrise. That's the hidden curse of cruelty. Her name was remembered only as the one who mocked. She was blessed with children, but not purpose, with fertility, but no fruit that lasted. The woman who once had everything became no one in the story of God. Hannah went on to have more children. Yes, 5 more in total. But her real legacy wasn't her womb. It was her worship. She turned heartbreak into surrender, tears into prayer, and pain into power. She wrote a song after Samuel was born, a hymn of triumph that echoes through Scripture. And centuries later, When a young girl named Mary was told she'd give birth to the Messiah, she quoted Hannah's song. That's how far her influence reached. So the curse of Elkanah's wives wasn't just about childlessness. It was about the ugliness of pride and the beauty of surrender. It was about how a woman society called cursed became the mother of a prophet, and how the one who had everything ended up with nothing. Because God doesn't just look at the womb, He looks at the heart. And in the end, the one who cried in silence became the one whose voice changed a nation. If you found this story powerful, imagine what other forgotten biblical tales are hiding secrets like this. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the unseen, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes, the stories you think you know have a twist you never saw coming.